Hi guys, it's me, Jess. I just wanted to pop on to the YouTubes. Why do I sound like a robot? I just wanted to pop onto YouTube and let you guys know that I'm going to be doing a book club over on my Patreon for all of my patrons starting August 17th. The sun is conjunct Mercury that day, and it seems like a really good day to start a book club for us nerds. So if you guys have been considering joining my Patreon, it's just worth considering joining at the beginning of August, especially if you guys are considering the $5 tier where you would get a lot of the exclusive videos and things like that as well, because then you'll get it all the way through August. So gross advertising pitch over. We are going to be reading Ishmael, my favorite book of all time, Ishmael, An Adventure in Mind and Spirit by Daniel Quinn. Some of you guys have asked me what things I like to read, especially in regards to like spiritual topics. And this book, you guys, easily tops that list. This book is in a league of its own for so many reasons. And I'm about to tell you why. And I'm about to read a little excerpt so you guys can see if this is something that you jive with, something that you vibe with, and maybe you guys want to join us a little bit over there. So I first read this book when I was a freshman in college, and I had to read it for a biology class. And please don't let that freak you out. It's not actually at all. It's not about dissecting frogs or, you know, anything. It's so well done. I feel a little overwhelmed talking about it. This is not really a book that you can quote from. You can't really open it up to any page and read a quote, but at the same time, it is absolutely so profound, and each realization kind of builds upon the next. So the reason this book is so unique is because it's done in a conversational style, and it's so real, and it's about those nitty-gritty moments as well that we can go through on a spiritual quest. The narrator definitely has hit a wall, so to speak, in his spirituality. He's been disillusioned, and he's losing his hope, he's losing his faith when he meets Ishmael. And Ishmael is a gorilla, and that sounds a little strange, and he does communicate telepathically with the narrator. And this book is really for anyone who has ever thought that maybe they wanted to have a spiritual teacher, because Ishmael really becomes that spiritual teacher for all of us and helps to guide our very contemplative narrator through pointing that contemplative energy. Because I think you'll, just from the excerpt that I'm going to read to you now, I think you're going to realize that the narrator, who is never named because we are all the narrator, he has a very contemplative mind, like so many of us do. And Ishmael helps to point that into very helpful directions, and just as you would expect, the spiritual teacher that sort of speaks in cones, you know, that answers a question with the question. And that is so the spiritual path. For every answer that we have, we have, you know, so many more questions. It's the same thing as reading a book, because I've been reading all these books lately. Thank you so much to my patrons. They've really, their donations over there, because that's really how I look at it. I mean, that's what a patron is, right? Because of them, I've been able to really expand my astrological library. I've been reading so much. I just, that group of people, there's over 40 of us over there now, and it's just such a solid group of people. And we're launching our Discord. I'm really excited to be able to like kind of keep in touch with people and try to have discussions with a group of like-minded people. It's something that I'm very excited about. So speaking of discussions, back to Ishmael. I guess I'm just going to start reading it, and we can talk about a little bit more afterwards. So this is literally the introduction to Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. The first time I read the ad, I choked and cursed and spat and threw the paper to the floor. Since even this didn't seem to be quite enough, I snatched it up, marched into the kitchen, and shoved it into the trash. While I was there, I made myself a little breakfast and gave myself some time to cool down. I ate and thought about something else entirely. That's right. Then I dug the paper out of the trash and turned back to the personal section, just to see if the damn thing was still there and just the way I remembered it. It was. Teacher, in all caps. Seeks pupil. Must have an earnest desire to save the world. Apply in person. An earnest desire to save the world? Oh, I like that. That was rich indeed. An earnest desire to save the world. Yes, that was splendid. By noon, 200 mooncalves, soft heads, boobies, ninny hammers, noodle heads, gawkies, and assorted oafs and thickwits would doubtless be lined up at the address given, ready to turn over all their worldlies for the rare privilege of sitting at the feet of some guru pregnant with the news that all will be well if everyone will just turn around and give his neighbor a big hug. You will wonder, why is this man so indignant, so bitter? It's a fair question. In fact, it's a question I was asking myself. The answer goes back to a time a couple decades ago when I'd had the silly notion that the thing I wanted most to do in the world was to find a teacher. That's right. I imagined I wanted a teacher, needed a teacher, to show me how one goes about doing something that might be called saving the world. Stupid, no? Childish, naive, simple, callow, or just fundamentally dumb. In one so manifestly normal in other respects, it needs explaining. It came about in this way. During the children's revolt of the 60s and 70s, I was just old enough to understand what these kids had in mind. They meant to turn the world upside down. And I was just young enough to believe they might actually succeed. It's true. Every morning when I opened my eyes, I expected to see that the new era had begun, that the sky was brighter blue and the grass a brighter green. I expected to hear laughter in the air and to see people dancing in the streets, and not just kids, everyone. I won't apologize for my naivete. You only have to listen to the songs to know that I wasn't alone. Then one day when I was in my mid-teens, I woke up and realized that the new era was never going to begin. The revolt hadn't been put down. It was just dwindled away into a fashion statement. Can I have been the only person in the world who was disillusioned by this? Bewildered by this? It seemed so. Everyone else seemed to be able to pass it off with a cynical grin that said, well, what did you really expect? There's never been any more than this and never will be any more than this. Nobody's out to save the world because nobody gives a damn about the world. That was just a bunch of goofy kids talking. Get a job, make some money, work till you're 60, and then move to Florida and die. I couldn't shrug it away like this. And in my innocence, I thought there had to be someone out there with an unknown wisdom who could dispel my disillusionment and bewilderment. A teacher. Well, of course there wasn't. I didn't want a guru or a kung fu master or a spiritual director. I didn't want to become a sorcerer or learn the zen of archery or meditate or align my chakras or uncover past incarnations. Arts and disciplines of that kind are fundamentally selfish. They're all designed to benefit the pupil, not the world. I was after something else entirely, but it wasn't in the yellow pages or anywhere else that I could discover. In Hermann Hesse's The Journey to the East, we never find out what Leo's awesome wisdom consists of. This is because Hesse couldn't tell us what he himself didn't know. He was like me. He just yearned for there to be someone in the world like Leo, someone with a secret knowledge and wisdom beyond his own. In fact, of course there is no secret knowledge. No one knows anything that can't be found on a shelf in the public library. But I didn't know that then. So I looked. Silly as it sounds now, I looked. By comparison, going after the Grail would have made more sense. I won't talk about it. It's too embarrassing. I looked until I wised up. I stopped making a fool of myself. But something died inside of me. Something that I'd always sort of liked and admired. In its place grew a scar. A tough spot, but also a sore spot. And now, years after I'd given up the search, here was some charlatan advertising in the newspaper for the very same young dreamer that I'd been 15 years ago. But this still doesn't explain my outrage, does it? Try this. You've been in love with someone for a decade. Someone who barely knows you're alive. You've done everything, tried everything to make this person see that you're a valuable, estimable person and that your love is worth something. Then one day you open up the paper and glance at the personals column, and there you see that your loved one has placed an ad. Seeking someone worthwhile to be loved and to love and be loved by. Oh, I know it's not exactly the same. Why should I have expected this unknown teacher to have contacted me instead of advertising for a pupil? Contrariwise, if this teacher was a charlatan as I assumed, why would I have wanted him to contact me? Let it go. I was being irrational. It happens. It's allowed. So that is just a little taste of Ishmael. This whole book basically takes place either in conversation between Ishmael as a teacher or within the narrator's contemplative thought processes. And I think that you'll find there's a lot of really profound insights that can be found in this book. And not to give too much away, but the heart and soul of it is that Ishmael really does ask us to examine the stories that we tell ourselves and the way that story impacts our own psyche and in turn impacts our manifestations and the lives that we create for ourselves, the goals that we set for ourselves. And people on my Patreon know that I am kind of on this kick of reclaiming the term witch as a female conscious creator energy. Not female, feminine. And Ishmael really sets a solid foundation for us to do that. So I hope that you guys will consider joining Patreon. If not, I totally understand. I don't want this to be a weird like advertising pitch, but at the same time, like it is an offering for my patrons over there. So if that's something you guys want to consider, I hope that you will. And bye.